web application penetration testing. Before we can start talking about that, we need to understand what is a website. And just like I said before, a website is just an application installed on a computer. That computer probably just has better specs than your computer, but fundamentally it works exactly just like another computer. So it has an operating system, and it also has a number of applications to allow it to act as a web server. So the main two applications that it probably has is a web server and a database. A web server is like Apache, and a database is like MySQL. And these are the web server basically understands and executes the web application. So your web application would be written in PHP or Python and any programming language really. The only thing is that the web server needs to be able to understand and execute this web application. The database contains the data used by the web application. So all of this is stored on a computer called the server. The computer is connected to the internet, and it has a real IP address, so anybody can access that computer and can ping it. So the web application is executed by the web server, which is installed on your server, on your target. Therefore, anytime you request a page or you run the web application, it's actually executed on the web server, and it's not executed at the client's computer. It gets executed at the web server, and then it sends a HTML page which is ready to read for the target person or for the clients. So let's have a look on an example. And let's say you're on a phone or on your computer and you wanted to go to facebook.com. So you type in facebook.com into your URL. This will be translated using a DNS server to an IP address. So there is a server that translates every name, .com, .edu, or any website with a name, with a domain name. So this is a domain name to its relevant IP address. So you request facebook.com, the request goes to a DNS server, it translates facebook.com to the IP where Facebook is stored, and then it'll go to Facebook, to the IP address of Facebook, it'll execute the page that you wanted using all of the applications that we spoke about, and then just give you ready HTML. So what you get back is just a markup written in HTML, which is a markup language of the result of executing the program. So the program gets executed on the server, and then you just only get the result. This is very important because in the future, if we wanted to get anything executed on the web server, if we wanted to get a shell, a reverse shell, or a virus executed on the target computer, then we need to send it into a language that the web server understands. So for example, PHP. And once you execute it there, it will be executed on that computer, not on your computer. So regardless of the person that accesses the page, the web shell that you're gonna send, if it's written in PHP in a language that the server understands, is gonna be executed on the server and not on your computer. Therefore, it'll give you access to the server and not access to the person who accessed that server. JavaScript, on the other hand, there is some websites use JavaScript, and JavaScript is a client-side language. So if you manage to find a website that allows you to run JavaScript code, then the code will be executed by the clients. So even though the code might be injected into the web server, it will be executed on the client side, and it'll allow you to do things to the client computer and not to the server. So it's very important to separate between a client-side language and a server-side language. Now, let's translate this into our example. So in our example, we're going to be targeting the Metasploitable machine. So our web server is going to be the Metasploitable machine. And we're not going to be using a DNS server. So we're not going to be using a name like facebook.com. We'll be accessing the website directly using its IP address. So like we've seen before, if we just go here to our Metasploitable machine and type in ifconfig, you'll see that my IP is 10.20.14.2.14. And if I go here to my Metasploit machine, to my Kali machine, you'll see that if I type in 10.20.14.2.14, you'll see that I can access my Metasploitable machine. So The web server here is the Metasploitable machine itself. The web applications are Metilliday, PHPMyAdmin, DVWA, and all of these. So these are web applications, and when we click on them, you can see, for example, here, it's written in PHP. So it's written in this programming language. It's also using a MySQL server, which can be accessed through PHPMyAdmin. So these are just technologies used on the web server, but the web server itself is the Metasploitable machine here. So when you put the IP address, when you put 10.20.14.2.14, we're actually accessing the Metasploitable machine. And inside the Metasploitable machine, we have technologies, we have interpreter that's running PHP code, we have a web server and a database. And these are running the web application for us, which is Metilliday, DVWA, and all of them. So knowing these components leave us to knowing how we can hack a website. So there is more than one thing that we can exploit to gain control over a website. Now, the main thing, the obvious thing that you'd think of is the web applications. So it's the thing that you always interact with. For example, in Facebook, it's where you search for stuff and where you upload pictures, where you write posts. All of these things are handled by the web application because it's the thing that you click, the thing that you interact with. So for example, if I go here on Metilliday and I start browsing the web page, this is my web application. So every time I click on something, it's being handled and executed by the web application on the web server. So if I could exploit this web application in some way, if I could gain access to it, if I could connect to the database, because obviously this web application connects to the database, then I'll be able to maybe gain control over the website and maybe even gain access to the web server and then get access to other websites on the same server. We'll talk about all of that later in the course. The other way of gaining access to websites is using the computer itself. So let's say your target was DVWA and you couldn't get in, you couldn't find any exploits in the web application itself. You tried everything, you tried all the exploits that we're going to talk about, and you just couldn't get in. Then your other option would be to exploit the programs installed on that computer, because we said a web server, the website, is installed on a normal computer, just like your home computer. So if you couldn't get in using the web applications, what if there is one of the programs installed on the computer itself has an exploit, has a buffer overflow or a remote execution exploit? What if the web server itself or the database program, the program that's running the database itself, had a remote root exploit that allows you to just gain access to the whole web server, including all the websites inside it? So this will be really cool if you could get it. If you couldn't find anything wrong with the applications installed on the web server on the operating system, then you could target the humans, because we know websites are managed by humans. For example, Facebook, you can target Mark, or you can target the admins of Facebook, for example. These admins obviously have more privileges on that website than you, and then they might be able to upload sensitive files to that website, and then you can control it and hack it by hacking into one of those people. So instead of, maybe the website is very secure and the server is very secure and there's no way that you can get in, but you can always exploit the humans using social engineering attacks and client-side attacks to gain control or hack one of the people that manage that target website and then maybe gain access to it. Now, this course will be concerned with the web application penetration testing. So it's concerned with the first step, with the first approach. So we're going to learn how to discover and exploit a large number of vulnerabilities that can be found in the web application itself. We're not going to be talking about server-side attacks, so the attacks that exploit the operating system and the applications installed on the operating system itself of the web server. And we're not going to be talking about the client-side attacks, about attacking humans and hacking their accounts and then gaining access to the website. All of the last two sections are actually covered into my general ethical hacking course. So I have a course called Learn Ethical Hacking from Scratch, which covers those two aspects. Therefore, in this course, we're going to be focusing on the web application penetration testing side. So on hacking the websites based on the web applications installed on that website.